Turn 2, the Dark Power player drew Wormtongue Bemuse's Theoden. Grima Wormtongue, we all know him. It is a good card, but it does not apply right now. It would be kind of a waste of play. What it does is it prevents the Rohim, the light blue guys, from being mobilized, but they are nowhere near being mobilized. All the armies, both the Fellowship and the Dark Power players, start off immobile and they cannot move. For the large part, their characters cannot move until they get mobilized. The Dark Power player, the Hand Orc Saruman, mobilizes this turn, so he's good to go. The regular forces, I think, mobilize turn 7, not the regular, the Eye Orcs. But the Fellowship people do not mobilize. They mobilize on triggers, and the triggers are things like, if they get attacked, they mobilize. And also if Gandalf, who is somewhere up there right now, gets in talks with their leader, they mobilize. The elves and the men and the dwarves only mobilize if they're attacked, but they're pretty small armies. The biggest armies in Gondor and Rohan. So he doesn't want to play that now. He's going to, since the Fellowship players already moved south from the Misty Passes, he's going to discard this. And if they take it, they'll move back there. It'll be, I don't know. It's not as bad as discarding any of these other cards. So that's what he does. And as the Fellowship player, I'm going to roll a die on a 1 or 2. This will be my house rule. I take the discarded card, which is discarded face down, instead of drawing from the draw pile. So on a 1 or 2, you can't see the dice. 4. So no, he's going to draw. The Fellowship player is going to draw a new card, and they draw Tom Bombadil Intervenes. Any Barrow-wights present disappear. Can be used to avoid battling Barrow-wight servants of Sauron, which are considered to have been defeated in battle if this card is played when they are encountered. So Tom Bombadil wasn't in the movies, but Richard Berg put him in this game. Something to think about. So servants of Sauron are these cards here. And there are 4 servants and 2 rumors. The rumors do nothing. The servants are somewhat bad. The Barrow is kind of the weakest one. There's a Balrog, there's Shelob, and there's a Troll. I think the Troll is pretty weak. And there are certain hexes that the Fellowship player is likely and desires to go through that have this Servant of Sauron symbol on them. And if the Fellowship passes through there, they have to draw a card. And if it's a scary rumor, nothing happens. If it's one of the Servants of Sauron, they have to fight it. And since the Fellowship players, his strategy this turn, or in the beginning of the game, is to pass through Moria. And Moria has a Servant of Sauron symbol. And the reason he's choosing to do that is because he has the Galadriel's Light magic item, which will let him pass through that tunnel for cheap. And during turn 1, the Shadow player moved 4 Nazgul for 8 Shadow points, placing them in the path of the Fellowship. Because if they walk through my forces, either Orc armies or Nazgul, there's an automatic chance that they get spotted. Otherwise, we have to roll on the search, which I'll do once I decide to play or discard one of these cards here for the Fellowship. These are all pretty good. We're going to discard the Orcs as it's not applicable for quite a while in the game. And then it is the search phase, which involves this deck here. It includes Orcs, either Hand or Eye Orcs, and Nazgul. And you draw from the bottom. It's Hand Orcs, 7 strength points. And it's these provinces. So if there are unspotted Fellowship characters in any of these provinces, the Shadow player can spend some Shadow points and attempt to spot them. If they're spotted, they're flipped over right now. You can't see, but these counters are face down. And I cannot attack them or try to capture them while they're face down. It's kind of like I don't know where they are. And I do think they're currently in a Rodur So this was a lucky draw for the shadow player. So he's going to attempt to search. And let's see, there's cost 1 shadow point to search with orcs. Yes. Probably can't see where I'm pointing. So he'll expend 1 shadow point. He has 13 this turn. And then there's the search table here. So it's kind of an interesting table. The more search points you have, of course, the more likely you are to detect them. But the more characters in the hex, the more likely you are to detect them. So they'll become spotted on a 1 through 4. But if there's fewer, it would only be 1 or 2. But opposite of that, it's the little C is being, there's an attempt there to get captured. So if you have more characters, it's less likely they get captured, where if you have fewer characters, they might not be spotted, but if they are captured. So let's roll the die. There are 9 characters in there, the entire fellowship. I rolled a 6, which is utter failure. The hand orcs do not know what's going on in WotR. My friends, the time has come to split the fellowship. Gandalf, Legolas, Boromir, Merry, and Pippin have headed off to the south, and we had to run the gauntlet of the Nazgul in Aragon searching for the ring bearer, and we were spotted. So Boromir, the dark power player, knows that Boromir, Gandalf, and Legolas are in that group. He knows that there are 2 hobbits, but he still doesn't know the identity of the hobbits, because if he knew it was Frodo, it would kind of give up the game or give up the out of character knowledge. And these people will remain spotted as long as they are in this territory here, Aragon. And unfortunately, I only had 5 movement points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I could not get out. And I thought for a moment to stay in that hex and fight these Nazgul, but because, one, it's not bad to have Boromir die. Sadly, just remove him from the picture so the dark power player can't use him to seize the ring later on. Also, as we all know, when Gandalf the Grey perishes, he returns as Gandalf the White, a more powerful character. But the downsides are that I don't have an actual elven sword, and so I can't permanently kill these Nazguls. The most I can do is sort of temporary damage that gets completely healed whenever he moves the Nazgul back to a citadel, dark power citadel, or Barad-dûr, something like that. But Nazgul can fly anywhere on the entire map on their fell beast in 1 turn. So for those reasons, also, if you start combat continues until either both sides decide to stop it, or one side's characters are completely eliminated. And it could have been really bad where I didn't want to lose Legolas for sure. And if he was lucky, and the dark power player doesn't care about those Nazgul, he would just keep fighting, and he might do some serious damage to my characters. So I chose not to fight them. And the second part of the fellowship, Aragorn, Gimli, Samwise, and the ring bearer, also have to run this gauntlet. Luckily, they were not spotted, and using Galadriel's light, they can pass through Moria here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Normally it would cost 4 just to get through this 5 from here to here, but it costs only 2 with Galadriel's light. But this hex is a servant of Sauron. So let's see what servant lurks in Moria. If I can find it on the gates of Moria. It is fittingly the Balrog, which is bad news. The Balrog is pretty tough. Let's see this, now Aragorn, Gimli, Sam, and Frodo must battle the Balrog. So we're set up for the Fellowship to fight the Balrog in the mines of Moria. The Balrog is a tough customer here. He has a combat value of 4, an endurance of 6. That means he can take 6 hits, and his combat value is 10. Is whatever. It's 4 plus 6 is 10. And check this hairy bad guy out, man. Troll hair, I love it. So combat in this game is a little bit of a death spiral, as you take their value of 10, and we're gonna have Gimli fight first because honestly, sadly, he's expendable. So he has a combat value of 3 and endurance of 6, which gives him a total of 9. So each side, and it's a one-on-one matchup, will subtract the opponent's value. So Gimli's at a -1 and the Balrog's at a +1. But as you see, is your endurance, if you take hits, you get a greater and greater negative value. And it's a death spiral. And here's the individual combat chart here. And each person rolls. So it is, I believe, let's see, yeah, it must be defender, or attack. Whoever rolls is the left side, and your opponent's the right side. So if you're -4 and you roll a 1 through 3, you're straight up killed. But he's on -1, so if Gimli rolls a 2, he'll take 2 wounds, and it's possible for the Balrog at +2 to roll a 3, and Gimli will take 2 more wounds. So he could take 4 wounds in one combat, and then he's at -5 or something. But there's also a chance that the Balrog will roll one of these, which wounds him as well. And, Gimli could hope for the best would be 3. 1 would be the second best. But let's see what happens here. So we're at oh yeah, and the other thing is the game came with these awesome little sheets where you track your endurance. And each time you take a hit, you check off the box. And there's some other notations you use. If you put on the ring, you start filling the boxes with circles, and it represents the ring trying to control your mind and wear you down. And if you ever get all your boxes filled with circles, because you can't automatically take off the ring, you have to roll. And it's easy for hobbits, it's hard for everyone else to take off the ring. You become a ring wraith and are under the control of the dark power player thenceforth. So, first off, Gimli versus the Balrog, noble dwarf in his ancestors' minds, trying to defeat the demon of shadow and fire. So first we'll roll for the Balrog on the +1. He gets a 2, and a 2 on +1 is a 1 wound for poor Gimli. And things are simultaneous, so this won't affect the battle until next turn. And Gimli takes a wound. And then Gimli on the -1 table rolls a 4. And 4 is 2 wounds for Gimli and 1 wound for the Balrog. It is not looking good for the son of Durin. Balrog takes a 1 wound. So round 2, and Gimli must continue to fight until and the servant's never going to give up until one side's dead. So now Gimli, his endurance is only 3, plus his 3 combat value gives him a 6. The Balrog is down to 9. So now they're on the +3 and -3 table. The Balrog will roll a 3. Oh, there you go. Now you can see the roll. A 3 on the +3 is 2 wounds for Gimli. 1 more wound and he is dead. And he is very likely to, he's going to die. Because on the he could roll a 6. On the -3 table, 1 through 5 will do at least 1 roll. Come on, 6. He rolls a 5, which at least does nothing at -3. Too bad. Gimli, dwarf of the kingdom under the mountain, is no more. Let's read his little flavor text in honor of his heroic attempt at defeating the Balrog. Of course, everyone in this game has some little flavor text because it's that kind of game. The struggle to destroy Sauron's ring is a joint struggle, and the cooperative characters of the effort symbolized by the presence of the dwarf Gimli and the elf Legolas and the Fellowship, as well as the hobbits, the humans, and the wizard Gandalf. Gimli is of Durin's line. His father, Glóin, so I was kind of correct, was one of the members of the company which accompanied Frodo's famous uncle Bilbo Baggins on the adventure described in The Hobbit, the best book Tolkien ever wrote, during which the ring was originally recovered. Legolas's father is Thranduil, king of the Woodland Realm, who incidentally is represented in the campaign game. Both Gimli and Legolas were present at the Council of Elrond at Rivendell, and that is when they were chosen members of the Fellowship of the Ring. So the battle continues on to Aragorn. I really don't want Aragorn to die. But Samwise doesn't have it. I'm not going to use the ring bearer, obviously. Samwise has a 5, so he would start at -4 against the Balrog, which is not tenable. Aragorn also has a 9, which currently equals the power of the Balrog, so it's a straight up 0 dice roll. The Balrog going first rolls a 1, which is no effect. Aragorn, he really wants to roll a 3 or a 5. A 3 will do 1 wound to the Balrog, and a 5 will do 2 wounds to the Balrog, but 1 to Aragorn. He rolls a 3. Aragorn is the best fighter in Middle-earth. He does 1 wound to Balrog. The Balrog is now at 8 to Aragorn's 9, so now the Balrog's at the -1. It is the Death Spiral now in favor of the Fellowship. 2 for the Balrog does 2 wounds to himself. Not actually. It was representing a melee combat, and he just did so poorly that Aragorn was able to drive him to the edge of a bridge. Now Aragorn gets to fight at the +1 level. 3 at +1 is 2 wounds to the Balrog. And Aragorn drives the Balrog off the last bridge into the pits of Mordor, and the Balrog, demon of fire and shadow, is no more. That's your narrative war game right there. Gimli charging forward to attack the Balrog perishes, and Aragorn draws his sword, steps forward, and slays the Balrog without taking a single wound, allowing the ring bearer and the Fellowship to pass through the mines of Moria into Dimrold Dale on their way to the elven sanctuary of Lothlorien. I love this game. Watch that. Huzzah!